Chapter 5. In 1969, a woman named Joan Gans Cooney phoned him. She was working on a new kind of kids' TV show called Sesame Street. The idea was that it would make learning fun for very young children, a sort of preschool on TV. Jim and Jane had 4 kids by now and would soon have their last child, Heather, in 1970. Jim liked the idea of a show that taught kids something and didn't talk down to them. It was something important to be a part of. Although he was busy, he decided to make time for Sesame Street. Besides his small-sized Muppets, Jim was asked to create one special Muppet that would hang out on the street with the real actors. This Muppet would be way bigger than the people, but Jim wanted to make the Muppet to think like a kid, too. He hatched the idea of Big Bird. Big Bird is an 8'2" friendly yellow bird with a person inside. Jim, who was 6'3", planned to be Big Bird, but when he tried on the costume, someone told him that he didn't act bird-like. He agreed. A performer named Carol Spinney took the job instead. Since he was shorter than Jim, he had to wear 4-inch tall shoes to fit into the costume. Inside, there was a fan to help him stay cool and a TV monitor so he could see himself. Carol Spinney has performed as Big Bird for over 40 years. The first show aired on November 10, 1969. Sesame Street was more popular than anyone ever expected. Big Bird wound up on the cover of Time magazine. The Muppets were famous. On Sesame Street, Kermit became a superstar. By now, he was all frog. He had a collar, frog feet, and a pink tongue. Some friends thought Jim was very much like Kermit, easygoing and good at running things. Jim thought Kermit was sometimes bolder than he was. Jim thought he was more like Ralph. Jim always operated Kermit himself. He sang Kermit's song, Being Green, which became popular. It's about how being green may seem unexciting, but it's really wonderful. Jim wanted all children to know that they were wonderful too. Jim also played Ernie on Sesame Street and sang his hit song, Rubber Ducky. Frank Oz played Bert, Ernie's pal. Like Jim, Frank was shy about some things. For a while, he was scared to do puppet voices, but on Sesame Street, he performed Bert, Grover, and Cookie Monster. Jane and the Henson kids loved visiting the TV studio. Jim would take them out to lunch or for ice cream if he had time. Sometimes the kids got to meet the guest star or even be in the show. When he was only 6, Jim's son Brian was in a skit about how buildings get made. He and 2 other kids were shown digging in a sandbox. Eventually, Jim moved his office and his workshop to East 69th Street in New York. The building had a spiral staircase and a huge hot air balloon sculpture his son John helped make out of wire, wood, and metal. The Muppets were carefully stored in their own drawers. There were also drawers full of feathers, eyeballs, noses, foam faces, whiskers, wigs, and fur. There were shelves with all different sorts of cloth. There were long work tables where new Muppets were built. If Kermit were out, a new Kermit was made. Sometimes Jim would stop by to try out a new, partly built Muppet. He liked to figure out problems. For instance, how to make a Muppet saxophone player's cheeks puff in and out. He was delighted if someone found a new kind of hair or eyeball that made a creature look more interesting. When he liked something, he might call it lovely. If he didn't like something, he wouldn't say so. He'd say, interesting, or, and he'd offer suggestions to help. He always spoke softly and moved his hands a lot to describe something. Every week, Jim and his crew were given lists of topics for upcoming Sesame Street shows. It was their job to come up with fun, smart ways for the Muppets to teach things like letters, math, and shapes. Jim still managed to find time to make TV specials like The Great Santa Claus Switch. He even made special Muppets for a late-night TV show, Saturday Night Live. Jim had ideas for his own TV shows and movies that he wanted to create. But for now, Sesame Street was keeping him awfully busy. That's the end of Chapter 5.